Good. Okay, so the first order of business is public comment. And any member of the public that wishes to address an item or an issue that is not on the agenda may do so for up to 2 minutes. I think I have 2 for public comment. Rick Clausen.
It's definitely not on the agenda, but the last time I spoke, I welcomed new members and I said, don't forget the cardinal rule, turn on your microphone. As an experienced member.
See, you didn't remind me before the
setting a bad
meeting. Yeah, I know.
Thank you. My name is Rick Clausen, and I'm here because, well, only partially because of something later down on your agenda, and that is that, sorry,
Turn on your
hoist on my own
microphone.
petard.
Yeah.
Later in your agenda, you're going to be dealing with a list of nominees for Structure of Merit. Okay. And I noticed that almost 40% of those on this list are on North Milpa Street. And it calls to my attention, and I hope to call it to yours, that next Tuesday at the City Council meeting will be an appeal of an ABR decision to deny final approval to a building at 711 North Milpas. It's a 76-unit AUD building. And it's going to be a weird appeal because there are 2 appellants with very different points of view. And we don't know what time it's going to be. The agenda's not set until Thursday, I think. A lot of the issues are technical, but it is, to your attention, it is a contemporary building in style. It's a precedent-setting building, I think, being 76 units. It's a combination of 8 plots to allow this, and it's a 4-story building, and it butts up against the junior high school fields there. So I just came, and I want to encourage you. I want to invite you to come and speak as private citizens if you have feelings about that building. That was it.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Kellum DeForest.
Good morning, or good afternoon, excuse me. I wanted to say how sad I was that the appeal to retain the fountains on State Street was upheld, and the fountains will be torn down with very little consideration of their importance as street furniture, and any way of any exploration of ways of saving them or reintroducing fountains, and I feel that this may be that because of a few people on State Street not accepting, few people using State Street not accepting normal courtesy in city structures. Does this mean that all street furniture will have to be removed? So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will close public comment, and the next agenda item is approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of March 6th,
So moved.
2019.
Second.
We have a motion by Mahan and a second by Drury. Is that right? Okay. Are there any corrections for the minutes?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mahan.
on page 4, in the motion, I think it's a C. I think it's item 3. Identify the resource at the rear of the property. Oh yeah, that was the foundations, the possible foundations of the old Presidio wall. Mm-hmm. And I think that that sentence should say identify and locate the resource at the rear of the property.
Locate and identify.
Well, was it just that it wasn't represented on the plans?
Well, right, when it's represented on the plans, it will be located. I mean, we can scale it,
Sounds
So
like you're going around
I
with a
think
metal
it's important-
detector and
Yeah, I think it's
locating it,
important to say to locate, whether
Okay.
whether it's locate first and identify second is,
Well,
that's poetry. It's
Thank
beyond me.
Yes.
might I also suggest identify and locate the resource on the plans?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
And
That's
should
all I
we,
have.
should we make that historic resource, so it's a little more
I think
clear
that
what-
would be really important, yes,
Better,
that's a
yeah.
historic resource.
Were there other comments?
I had a comment, page 2, item 3. I wasn't at the meeting, but I did read the minutes. And Commissioner Mahan identified a potential new courthouse as a county courthouse. It's actually a state courthouse.
Okay. I was wondering about that as well.
Oh,
So the
thank
new
you.
state courthouse.
Right.
And I would also add to a correction on that same item, the last line, Commissioner Uli, who is the county architect, and county architect, I suppose, should be capitalized. So that's its title.
Good.
And on page 7, item 4, comment 4 in the motion, I'm wondering if what we should say is the commission appreciates the stone will be revealed with the elimination of the ivy, as opposed to picked up.
Yes,
Okay, revealed with,
or
the,
exposed.
yeah, or exposed. Okay, any other corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar of March 20th, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All items
That, Mr.
today
Chair.
were reviewed by Commissioner Mahan. Item A, 1732 Santa Barbara Street, received project design approval and final approval. Item B, 1227 State Street, received approval of review after final. Item C, 813 Anacapa Street, was continued 2 weeks. And item D, 878 Paseo Ferrella, was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer.
Say it again.
The last item, Commissioner Lindvik, item D, 878, was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer with comments. And if you'd like, I can read you those comments.
Yes.
Okay. So as you know in the agenda language, the design included a bathroom addition, and that is located in setbacks. So the first comment in relation to that was that the bathroom addition location is aesthetically appropriate to the existing architecture. 2, door A at the bathroom addition is required to be a solid core door to address the potential for noise. 3, it would be appropriate for the window on the north elevation of the bathroom to be enlarged to allow for increased light and air. 4, the existing hedge heights are aesthetically appropriate to the site. And the other improvements were all deemed acceptable. No final decision was made. It's not an appealable action. It's just continued comments to the staff hearing officer.
So we need separate movements for, motions, for continuing items C and D, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, you can accept with those items being continued. So it's just included
Just
in
one
the
motion?
acceptance. Correct.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mahan and a second by Uli?
The other way around.
Yeah.
Opposite.
What? Oh, the other way
The other
around.
way around.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
So, Mr. Chair, even though it was already mentioned in general public comment, I'll just say that City Council reviewed the appeal for the 500 block of State Street, which is adjacent to Hotel Santa Barbara, and decided to uphold the appeal to remove the fountains. And then Ms. Hernandez has some comments.
Thank you, Commissioners. The revisions to the Mills Act program went to the Finance Committee of City Council last week, and they were supportive in raising the property value caps so more people could, or more properties could participate in the program. They were also supportive in, instead of having a total cap for the program, but have an annual cap limit to how much the city can take as a revenue loss because of the program. We evaluated all the revenue losses for the 10 years and if they kept rolling and renewing, and they are recommending keeping them at just 10-year contracts. So we'll be meeting further with the finance department and then going to city council in May for the final revisions to the program, just in time for our next round of applications to come in. So it should allow for more properties to participate is the goal.
Thank you for that report.
And just one additional property has requested a postponement from the mass designations, and that's 830 De La Guerra Terrace. They I just got off the phone with them. They wanted some more time to consider all the options. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Drury, you attended Planning Commission
I
for
did.
517 Chapala. How did that go?
I did, and I had to, I got there, I thought it would be fairly businesslike. 4 hours later,
Oh, my God.
I was asked to come up and give comments, but the first 4 hours was spent with a really educational and hard-won education at that, considering the inclusion. Would you explain that a bit better than I can, Mrs. Ostringer? But it was about the AUD and the inclusionary clauses that some people, anyway, go ahead.
The city council requested staff to include inclusionary housing elements, which is affordability, into the existing AUD ordinance. So the Planning Commission was reviewing the proposed ordinance amendments for the affordability clauses.
Okay, but that's not relevant to 517 Chapala, is it? That's a
No.
hotel, isn't
No,
it?
it was
4
just, that was the first item that took 4 hours, so Mr.
I
Drury
took
sat for
naps
4
and I ran
hours.
laps and just did, But it was really educational because it makes, if I can digress a bit, it makes me understand that the city council is grappling with this rather unwieldy AUD ordinance as was originally presented, and it's coming under a great deal of scrutiny. I thought it was really helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to report on
Yes,
517?
and so they asked me some questions, which I answered, I think, fairly coherently, and because I was on board with the project, and I think we all were, and I think that they understood that, and I was particularly interested in making sure they understood how we got the applicant to move the bulk, the east, I think it would be the east elevation, away from the historic resource. So that seemed to go quite well.
Okay.
I got out of there with my scalp anyway.
You're alive.
I'm alive.
You live to tell.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a reporting on the subcommittee, which is to review the state court building.
Okay, will that be item E, subcommittee reports? Because
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
I thought we were on that.
Not quite yet.
Okay.
So I will
Excuse
just
me.
report a little bit on the Fountains appeal. I spoke representing that the commission was largely conflicted about, the street furniture and keeping these important elements to the character of Santa Barbara, but at the same time recognizing the plight of the Hotel Santa Barbara and the issues they're dealing with. Commissioner Mahan spoke ardently in support of the appeal, and it went the way I expected it would, which was that they upheld the appeal.
Mr. Chair, it would be important to add that a city ordinance, 22.22.145B, which requires that the Historic Landmarks Commission consider whether a project, which was the removal of the fountains, would debase or complement a adjacent historic structure, and that the Hotel Santa Barbara it's on the list to be made a historic landmark, and consequently, the commission should have reviewed that and given that consideration, and I think that was the thing that swayed City Council to make a decision to uphold the appeal.
Could well be. I would also add that I mentioned to the council that after we heard this item here at the commission meeting, I was contacted by Victor Garza from the city, And he wondered, well, what can we do? What's the solution here? And I suggested moving the fountain. We discussed that a little bit, but obviously they didn't pursue that. And so that went nowhere. Okay, item E, subcommittee reports.
Yes, the committee, we had a committee to review the preliminary drawings for the state courthouse across from our county courthouse on Figueroa Street, which was comprised of myself and Sheila Lodge, the UCSB architect, I don't remember his name, and
Mark Fisher.
Steve Americaner. And now the design of the state courthouse is changed considerably, and Commissioner Uli has been researching that, and so I'm going to ask him to give a brief report to you on what's happening. And I think it would be very appropriate, since we are missing one member, to appoint Commissioner Uli to replace the UCSB architect, since he's very, very close to this project. But he has no conflict of interest because it's a state project instead of a city project, so you might entertain that. But he has a report to give.
Okay. You prepared to give your report?
Yeah.
Please do.
I suppose I have a report.
Oh, okay.
Basically, because of budgetary reasons, the proposed state courthouse is to be a rectilinear, roughly 5-story building in the middle of the block. The existing Figueroa Street, what they call the FIG division, building will remain to be either sold, auctioned, or removed at some future date, which then would expose the front of the new courthouse. There's also some discussion about relocating the county probation office to another site and giving that property up as well. So the face of the new courthouse could very well face Carrillo Street instead of Figueroa Street. All of these things are kind of in a fluid state at the moment.
Yeah. Will this commission have a courtesy review, or is that what function your tenants on this
I
board is?
believe the state is very interested in having that project reviewed by this body. They did the first round. They found some benefit in that, so I don't imagine that they would not do that again.
Okay. So were you suggesting we take some action today on something?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think as chair, you could appoint Commissioner Uli to replace our missing member. And I think it'd be very
Mr.
appropriate.
Grumbine.
No,
It was Mark Fisher.
no, Mark who?
Mark Fisher.
Mark Fisher, yeah.
How do I replace somebody from UCSB with somebody from?
That's the power of the chair.
Okay, I like this feeling of
And
power.
I would add that because this is in El Pueblo Viejo,
Chair
I think it's
House.
very appropriate to have two.
We can't have any further discussion. We're limited under the
Because
Brown
it's
Act.
not agendized?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can make the report if it's something that the commission wants to bring back, then we can put it on the agenda
Okay,
and
so
have a discussion.
we should agendize this. for
Put it on the
a
agenda.
future date.
Put it on the agenda and we'll discuss it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Teva. Any other subcommittee reports? If not, then we will move on to the first item on our agenda. We're exactly on time. And that is multiple historic resources per attached Exhibit A. And that's a review of staff reports and public hearing to consider structure of merit designation of historic resources. And that would be this packet here. So first I will open public comment. Are you here for this?
Yes, I'm wanting a copy of this.
Okay, well then at some point you'll need to fill out one of those blue slips, but you can do that after the fact. So, and are you here to speak on this as well?
Yes.
And have you, okay.
Did you
right.
want me to do the intro before you do public comment?
What's that?
Did you want me to do my comments before public comment?
Sure.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
Just to give some background, since 2007, the City Planning Division has been making an effort to hold these designations of properties listed on the potential historic resource. resources list. The list since 1978 had grown to over 700 properties without really any updates to their eligibility to be designated or not. So once on the list, those properties are under the jurisdiction of the historic landmarks for any exterior improvements to the property to protect them, the character defining features on the building that qualify them to be eligible to be designated. However, it's not recorded and the status to the property owner is unclear, and property owners are often confused when they come in with projects and are forwarded to the Historic Landmarks Commission. To help have more transparency and clarity, we are trying to have these hearings to designate those buildings that are worthy of the designation and to take the buildings off that are not worthy of being on the list. That is your decision. I make the staff reports. I mean, there are a lot of them, so I do have help with interns from UCSB. If you have any suggestions or clarifications, we're happy to add those. We go through the criteria and find the criteria that is most applicable as to why they were added and would qualify if you were to vote for them. Some important notes that your decisions may be appealed to City Council in writing within 10 calendar days of the meeting. Upon the Commission's adoption of a resolution of designation as a structure of merit, the Community Development Director will record the designation. So it will be in the County Recorder's Office. If you do not designate a building that as a structure of merit, but it still really has evidence that it's significant, we have to leave it on the potentials list for CEQA purposes. And I think those are my main points. And the buildings will also, once they're designated, can also qualify for the Mills Act program, which I have information here if anybody would like to see them. I think those are my main points.
Okay, I will open public comment, and the first speaker is Gregory Dalen. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Oh, thank you. Actually, that's how my grandparents did that after World War I. But Dolan's the
Dolan,
correct-
okay.
There was a little bit of.
I thought it could be
issue
either
after
or.
that.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, and just try and keep it within 6 inches of your mouth.
Thank you, Commissioners, and Kellum DeForest. My name's Greg Dolan, and I live at 1821 Laguna Street. Have lived there and owned the property since 1989, 30 years. Also, I've been a resident of Santa Barbara since 1957. So
So have I.
So I'm not a native, but anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak here. And I also appreciate the fact that I own a property that was once part of Lockwood DeForest Sr.'s property. And
Oh, yes.
he built his primary residence at 1815 and 1915, and the ground floor of my property was built as a storage property in 1922, and apparently was known as Tut's Tomb. So as an owner, I am confused frequently, but I've talked to a number of architects and in really wanting to keep the character of Santa Barbara intact as much as I can, which is limited. I do support having it defined as a structure of merit. So I very much support that, what you're doing and the city's doing. I've reviewed what's been written, and it's actually very accurate. The only correction I would suggest making is that on the drawing, that is a drawing by the architect Cheeseman, who did the Monterey Colonial second floor and basically created kind of the character of the property today. That's not actually how it was built in 1945, 46. It was actually his rendition. So if you could just put in proposed, the front entrance in terms of the street access not being direct, as it's shown in that, is how it's been since that date. So
Okay.
anyway, again, I appreciate having time to speak to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next. Yes. Is it on?
Yes. I
Doesn't sound-
drive by that building
I think that the whole device didn't get turned on, perhaps. Oh, it is?
This thing never works.
I know, you're jinxed.
I suspect if we each gave you our microphone, it wouldn't work either.
You can call me on my phone and we can talk.
Yeah.
I drive by your home.
Thank you.
Is it on mute? Mute? Another mute button. And I find it an amazingly beautiful building. Amazingly beautiful.
Yeah.
I took it for an apartment house. And I said, but those windows are so clean, it can't possibly be an apartment house. And I've often said to myself, why don't you pull off to the side and simply walk over and knock on the door and see if you can go into the courtyard and look at that, I call it the south elevation.
Uh-huh.
And so someday you may see me knocking on your door.
I'd be-
I hope you will not say go away.
No,
Because I really admire that building. And, we struggle with apartment buildings, the architecture of them that come before us as the town is going to get denser, so on and so forth.
Right.
And I see that as just a superb, simple example of what is acceptable in our town.
Oh.
So I really appreciate what you're doing to keep that so nice, and that you accept our designation. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it. I just want to say quickly that if you look at the lot, only 50 feet is exposed to the street, and then it's 180 feet roughly in depth.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a large garage, which is also tiled the same way and has the same characteristics. And people have said to me, why didn't you have another house back there? And that's the last thing I would ever want.
I assume you have antique cars in the garage.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now we're talking.
Okay, well,
Thank
let's keep on track here. Next speaker is Callum DeForest.
Yes. I'm speaking on, what are those, I've flew my paper, on 1815 and 1821 Laguna Street, which were my grandfather, Lockwood DeForest Sr.'s property, houses. He designed the 1815 Laguna Street house, as far as we know, primarily by himself. Sort of mirroring Indian, that's architecture, and that's where the carved teak comes from. I think Mr. Lendwick is speaking of the 1815 house, which might look like an apartment house, but it never was designed as an apartment house, but the proportions fit the block very well. Of course, the buildings on the house faced Isley Street, and the buildings that the homes that are there on the corner of Isley and Garden have been added in the ensuing years. So I think I commend the structure of merit status, and I think possibly for the 1815 Laguna Street, it might be considered as a historic landmark. There are not many houses that have the Indian roots, and certainly I consider it a historic landmark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
For Mr. DeForest. It says architect unknown. Did your father design it?
What? My grandfather designed 1850 Laguna Street.
Your grandfather, your grandfather.
My grandfather.
Well, so we should change that, so that's who the That's who the architect was then, even though he wasn't, he was a landscape architect, right?
No, he was a designer. Lapidus Senior was a.
Oh, yeah, he was a designer with Tiffany.
He was an artist. This is my grandfather. He's an artist. Was primarily an artist, though he was very interested in design and went into business and with his friend Louis Comfort Tiffany, and they formed a group in New York called Associated Artists and designed a number of interiors in the New York New York environs, New York City and environs, and then he continued his practice of importing Indian carved teak and other Indian artifacts to decorate rooms of the throughout of the eastern United States for wealthy clients. So that's Lapidus. Then his son became the landscape architect. His son, who Lapidus Jr., became a landscape architect, and his impact in Santa Barbara is well known. Thank you.
Thank you
So
very
the
much.
document should be changed. Thank you.
And on this same item, while we are looking at it, in the property description, about 2/3 of the way down on the left margin, coiffured ceiling. I think it might be kind of tough to get the whole ceiling to the hair salon. So coffered ceiling.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Coffered. Okay, and the final public speaker would be Jonathan Stein.
Nicole Hernandez? Oh, thank you so much. You're so nice over the phone. Thanks a lot. May I address you from here? Or?
No, you need to come up to the microphone.
Okay,
On the record.
Playing poker here. Is this better?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much, and very much supportive of your work around town. I mean, it's really, I only moved here 2 years ago, although I've been coming up steadily for 30 years. And but my comments are exactly the opposite of what you've heard so far about appreciation for the structures of merit and the beauties of the property. We have an investment property at 500 North Milpas, and I just wanted to describe it to you and provide a little bit of detail for it. I've talked to Nicole about it. She sounds like she had a very sound analysis based on the lack of integrity in the building. But it's a building that was built after the earthquake. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about the research, but the block was built, and it's a good-looking block. It's a real classic, 1920s Santa Barbara block. But we own the end property, which is stuck on like a little knob. It almost looks like they got rid of the architect, who was probably a little expensive for them, and then said, hey, let's just add this later and earn some rent from it. It's because it's a different roof line. It's an entirely different vocabulary from the building. No arches, no wrought iron, or at least none left. A little snub nose where it turns the corner instead of anything elegant. The roof is red tile, but again, none of the vocabulary that you'd see in Spanish colonialism. And then the back of the building is just plain cut off. I mean, it just looks like it was just, they came to the end of the usable land and needed to add some parking, so they just stopped the building. The roof is a mansard roof. It doesn't go all the way through. We bought it, and it was already historically designated. It makes sense to somebody in the 1970s made a catalog of possibly significant buildings, wanted to be over-inclusive. I appreciate the efforts now to kind of trim that down, push up the structures of merit like the ones we've heard about, and get rid of the ones that are not meritorious. And I'd say, as the owner of this one, it was definitely it. Perhaps it's spending 50 years as a laundromat may have gotten rid of the curved windows or anything else that might have been relevant to the original vocabulary. But certainly when we had it, which was right after the marijuana dispensary had it for a while, we bought it, and it now has a day spa in it. Very popular with tourists. Employs a number of people now. They employ up to 6 people now, and up from 3. So we're doing our part for the community. But we're really kind of hoping to get rid of the designation and make it easier to do the kind of things that allow us to keep, current. I mean, I think if you look at State Street and the problems of vacancies there, I think maybe that's a lack of currentness. The Funk Zone is very current, very different style, of course, but very current and very popular. Who knows what the future will bring as to what is important about keeping this town, the jewel that it is. The melange of different styles with the predominant historical thrust behind it. But I'm kind of hoping that we'll have the flexibility to see what that might be, and as times change, maybe we can change the building to keep it popular.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I will close public comment. My thinking is that anybody can bring up an item on this exhibit that they think should be removed, and then we can have some discussion about that if that's appropriate, or just have a show of hands to see how many people agree with removing it. And so we'll decide on the ones to be removed, and then we'll have a motion for removing those, and then we'll have a motion for approving the remainder. Does that sound good? Okay.
So are you suggesting that we just go down that list and say, give you the no's?
Yeah. So let me know the first one that you think should be pulled off of that list.
All right. Should I start? I'll start.
Sure.
First of all, I appreciate the list. And in the future, what would be really handy is to number each list. I had a number them myself, but I'm not looking to save myself a little bit of work. I'm just trying to be more organized. So the first one I put a no on is 225 Los
Aguajes.
Thank you. This is why I would like a line number. My line number 10 is a no.
And which one?
The next one, 313
Well,
down.
let's just start with one item at a time.
I'm not going to give you my whole list. I only have 3 of them.
Well, no, I think let's have one at a time, discuss
right.
them if anybody has, if there's something to
There's
discuss.
my first one.
Let me, okay.
225, Mr. Chair, I also am no on that.
I would know on that as well.
Okay, so let's see a show of hands, people that are in favor of removing that. Okay, so that's a remove. Okay, Mr. Uli, your next suggestion.
Three more down, line 13 would be a no, and that's 039061008, 211 West Mitchell.
Okay.
What is it?
211 West Mitchell Trina.
211,
Would be a no. And or removed from the list.
211.
In evaluating some of these, I really struggled with, and I think Commissioner Lindvik has brought this up a number of times, and that is, they really have to be special, I think, to stay on the list. And this just seemed to be really garden variety, for lack of a
I'm
better
also no
planning
on that
word.
one, Mr. Chair.
Okay, show of hands. Okay,
Mr.
let's
Chair?
see. Let me count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's the majority.
Mr. Chair, may I
Yes.
speak to that
Please do.
item? I think it's a rather unremarkable building as well, but I think it's part of a streetscape. And I marked streetscape on the ones that I didn't think measured up in terms of being shining jewels of architecture. But I think that 200 block of Mitchell Train is really important. There's courts on one side. I think there's even a half court on that side of the street. But it's sort of it's an intact streetscape that's of the vernacular architecture of the after the turn of the century. I think that has to be looked at. I'm not suggesting that this house is representative of anything but kind of the low end of the scale in terms of the other bungalows, but it represents part of an intact streetscape. So I'm not going to vote with you.
Okay, and I wasn't opposed to that one being on there, but it looks like we have a majority
Okay.
are in favor of removing it. So, Mr. Uli, you're next.
Line 17, my line 17.
Why don't you just tell us that
I'll
address?
give it to you.
Okay. No
Two-
parcel
two-
numbers, please.
233 West Mitchell Terrena.
Okay, 233.
233.
No, 233.
233.
Wasn't special enough for me to keep on the list.
Mr. Chair, may I comment?
Please do.
This I think is terribly painted. I think that those umber framed windows and the general kind of lack of a good paint coat. I think it's an attractive building. If I could see that as just a properly painted building with trim that was not so. Burnt umber is one of my least favorite colors anyway. But I think it's one of those. It's part of that same streetscape. It's getting close to that two-story grocery on the end. I think on the Bath Street end. I would support keeping it on the list.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this item?
I would support keeping it as well. I think keeping those three little craftsman bungalows together is a nice streetscape look.
Okay, so show of hands of people that wish to remove it from the list. Only one, so we'll keep that one on. Okay, Commissioner Drury, do you have any that you wanted to remove from the list?
Do you mind can you come back to me, please? 'Cause
Sure.
I've got detailed notes.
Oh, Commissioner Nemec.
Okay, I have a little bit longer list of buildings I want to remove. The first one will be 231 Los Aguajes?
Aguajes.
Aguajes, so that's it.
231?
Aguajes, yeah.
231.
I concur there. No. My comment is there's absolutely nothing,
Yeah, there's nothing about it that's interesting.
nothing to this apartment that's worth recognizing.
Well, it's interesting that there are several that are identified architectural style as minimal traditional, and obviously somebody thinks that's important, but yeah, I would have not been too enthusiastic about it, but I don't know.
I'm no on that one.
You're a no? Yes, please.
I can enlighten you on
Please.
just
Please.
to
We need
identify that
enlightenment here.
this whole neighborhood, the West Beach and Waterfront, were identified in the early 2000s through a survey. And you're right, the surveyor really liked the minimal traditional style because they had added all of them at the time.
Okay.
So I concur with you. I don't find it a significant
Okay.
style, but that is how it came to be.
Okay.
Okay.
And,
Let's see a show of hands for those that would like to remove 231 Los Aguajes. Okay, that's unanimous, or at least a majority. Okay, so 231
Okay.
out.
Sorry, my
Okay, your
list
next one?
It's not necessarily in order of anything, but the next one to remove, I'd say, was the 500 North Milpas Street.
Okay.
520.
500 North
500.
Milpas, the one that this gentleman spoke on. Is there any discussion on that, or should we just take a vote?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I would include that as part of the streetscape really reluctantly because it's an odd little streetscape between the Club Pachanga, which was Casa de Pre at one point, King's Supper Club, which is not included, which is surprising, Mr. Hernandez. We're right next to the car wash. It's at the end of that whole elevation. But this is it could probably be brought into some sort of architectural compliance with the photograph, but as it sits right now, it's just not a very attractive building at all. So I'm reluctant to condemn it because it bookends that streetscape, but it's not very attractive.
The reason I see is taking it off is just because this little Milpas area does have the potential of being a second downtown area for this city in the future, and it's easier to revitalize this area, change it out for the future than we want State Street to ever do. And it could be seen as like the new quarter when State Street's the old quarter. So just, I think keeping that whole streetscape as it is, for me, is a little scary when some of these lots should be able to change out with buildings that the new buildings maybe can use the same vernacular materials and styles, but would look a lot better than that. So
Okay.
that's why I suggest taking it off.
I'm a no on it.
Okay, show of hands for those that would like to remove.
I have a question. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I agree in theory, and I drive by this building all the time, and it does. It looks like it's just sort of stuck on and doesn't seem to have a lot of character. However, I have a procedural question. If it's removed and the owner wants to make changes, would that go in front of the ABR then?
Yeah, only the ABR.
And would they be able to change it dramatically, modernize it in something, we see more down in the Funk Zone, these steel corrugated, steel sided buildings. Can they do whatever they want?
Whatever the ABR sees fit.
So by keeping it on the list, then it has to stay more in theme with what's there? That's my question.
Mr. Chair, I would also advise that there are special guidelines for Milpas area as well. So, and that the ABR does
They've
use
been
those.
followed for the last
The
20
ABR
years.
is supposed to use them. So, yeah, they do have their own set of rules, just similar to like how we have El Pueblo Viejo guidelines for that area.
Okay, all right.
Compatibility.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Compatibility. And I think also the theory of integrity on a building would be to designate something if after it has been restored to look like its original appearance, but not in the compromised state that this one is, which is why I don't recommend the
Yeah.
designation. But.
Okay, show of hands to remove 500 North Milpas. That is unanimous. Oh,
I
no,
would
except
add-
for Commissioner Drury. He wanted to.
I would
do
add,
that.
Mr. Chair, that if you compare the current photograph of that site with the 1926 photograph of the same building, it has zero integrity.
Oh, now be nice.
No, even the owner is laughing. There's zero integrity, so it's not worthy.
Mr. Nemec, next on
So
your
I
list.
guess the next one on my Milpas renewal project is 502, 504 North Milpas.
Anybody want to speak in favor of keeping
Yes,
that?
Mr. Chair. Well, I think I'll just go so far as to put 502, 514, 516 as being simply not remarkable buildings, but part of a singular streetscape that reflects the post-earthquake revitalization of Milpas Street. Milpas Street wasn't paved until probably 1930, something like that, I think. So it was sort of, in a way, the boondock, but this was an attempt to put some life into a pretty devastated area. So I'm kind of torn because I don't want to see what could possibly be a free-for-all for developing Milpas in a non-heterogeneous fashion and eliminating all these small buildings that are really intact and drawn to be intact, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they were, right, Ms. Hernandez, they were composed as a streetscape? They weren't just willy-nilly, right?
Yeah, I think that is what they were drawn to be a Spanish streetscape
Right.
in 1926.
Right.
And through the plans of planting.
So I'm in reply to Commissioner Nemec, I'm kind of torn about what to do because I think they deserve that elevation, that whole elevation, including the King Supper Club or La Pachanga, that bookend next to the car wash. I think that I agree with 500 North Milpas, but going up the street, I would like to see that whole elevation protected.
Thank you. Could I see a show of hands for those that would like to remove 502, 504? 1, 2, 3. So it looks like that one stays on. Okay, next item.
506 North Milpas. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you probably have the same thing to say about that, yes?
I think we both have the same comments.
Okay, and maybe the vote will go the same way too.
I also agree it should be. I don't, I think that
504 was marginal at best. I think 506 is even less going for it. It's more marginal than 502. It's I find it hard to believe that we are sitting here and saying, well, in 1925, whoever was building these things had a vision that this is what the streetscape should be. I don't think that the vision in 1925 was that. And what we see is a bunch of buildings that are inexpensively put up and don't merit any particular designation.
All right, thank you. Show of hands for those that would like to remove 506 North Milpas. Let's see, I was a remove on that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we have a majority. So 506 North Milpas will be removed.
All right.
Next one?
The next one was the one I disliked the most on North Milpas, and that's 512.
Okay.
It just looks, the facade, whatever that stone veneer is, just really doesn't look like it was the original part of the building. It looks like a 1970s addition.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Drury.
Not that I was ever a habitué of the Mecca.
Oh, come now.
I went in there once or twice when I was actually underage, and I got kicked out because I looked 28, and I was, yeah. So I'm not sure what happened to the Mecca, but there used to be cutouts of palm trees and camels across the top, and somebody put in, probably unpermitted, some sort of a weird little stonework in the front. I mean, that's just not the way the Mecca used to be. And I can't support, I'm sorry that I can't support keeping it, because it's basically, I mean, it's maybe just window dressing in terms of you can take the bricks out and so on, but it doesn't look anything like the Mecca used to look, and it was a Mecca for a lot of people. So I would agree with Commissioner Nemec.
Okay, show of hands to remove 512 North Milpas. So there's a majority clearly there.
Okay.
Next one.
Sorry, the last one on Milpas is 605. I don't know if this is going to start controversy about this market, but it just, I like the blueprint that's on it of the original windows that used to be above it and all that, and the building just doesn't have that integrity anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Santa Cruz Market. No, is that Chapala Market?
Chapala Market.
Did it used to be a Santa Cruz Market? I don't know.
It still looked like that blueprint. Maybe it's supported, but
Yeah. Yeah, those
I think it's
Branson
absolutely
windows.
iconic. Pardon me, Mr.
Is it?
Chair.
Yes, please.
I think it's absolutely iconic. And in fact, it gave us a font, as I recall, and when you and I were doing the font, or I suggested anyway. The addition of the windows, if somebody wanted to do that, you can see where they were. But I think that this is, it looks like exactly what it is. It's a market. It's not anything other than that. It's a neighborhood market, and I would not support taking it off the.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
No, I didn't live in the Milpas area when I was growing up, but my grandparents owned 825 East Gutierrez, which is just one building off of Milpas. So I spent so much time in this area and going and after school and then walking up to this market. And I can't imagine that it's not a structure of merit. It just, in my mind, really deserves the designation.
I agree.
Thank you for that perspective.
Mr. Chair, it's
Mahan.
really character defining for Milpas Street. It's always been there.
Yeah. Okay, may I see a show of hands for those that would like to remove 605 North Milpas? Only one, so we will keep that one.
Just a follow-up comment on that, part of the criteria is acknowledging the architects who did the project, and while the building that is there now has less integrity than the building that was designed, Windsor Sewell and Murphy, Sewell was the first fellow among the AIA fellows in California, actually being a fellow out of Boston, and so was Murphy. So, their contribution to the world of architecture is significant. So I think that's one reason to designate it.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just one more thing. I'm looking at I didn't look at this closely, the drawings of the front elevation from 57. So it was very recently, in terms of architectural historic time, that those windows were bricked in or whatever they did to them.
Are you saying that elevation drawing is dated 57?
57.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Front elevation.
Yeah. Okay, so anybody else have an item that they would like to remove?
I'm not done.
Oh, I thought you were done.
He's just done with Milpas.
Just two more.
Okay, I thought you said my last one is,
606
Okay.
North Milpas.
okay. Let's get that up on the screen.
606?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Drury.
Well, I would say yes, that this, I would not protect this particular building, except that it is part of a streetscape, and that's the only reason.
Okay.
I
Well,
would-
let's see a show of hands of those that would like to remove 606 North Milpas. Okay, that's a majority.
And one more, I promise.
Okay.
It's not on Milpas. It's
Oh, God.
215 Los.
Aguajes.
There we go, Aguajes.
215.
I don't see this as a good example of a Spanish colonial house unit. It, to me, it looks like a cheap imitation from the time, in my opinion.
Let's get that out of order.
Mr. Chair,
215?
215 Los Aguajes, yeah.
Oh, that's the one with the big fence.
Yeah.
You can't see it because of the fence.
Yeah.
I
Also
went in-
think
I
that-
went in.
I think the style is also off. I don't think it's
Yeah.
Spanish colonial revival.
The arches and stuff are just weird to me.
Steeply pitched roof.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
I think it's a beautiful building. It's a really lovely house, and I was nosing around in the front, and somebody came out with a pistol and threatened me. But I disarmed them, and they let me in. I walked. I mean, it's unfortunately the fence is there because it really hides a lovely, properly proportioned building, and I would not support its removal.
Okay. Anybody else wish to comment on it?
I could comment on that if I could turn the
Okay.
microphone on. Yeah. I've actually been in the house as well, and it's very quaint inside. It's very original, and without the fence, I think it would show better.
Okay, could I see a show of hands of those that would like to remove 631, 635? No, I'm sorry. 215 Los Aguajes. Okay, 2. Okay, so that one we'll keep. Okay, who else has an item they would like to see removed?
We'll jump in.
Yes, you are.
I believe that 119 Los Aguajes is not worthy of
What's that address?
119 Los Aguajes.
119?
Yes.
It's a nice looking house, but it's no different than hundreds of others in Santa Barbara. I mean, there's nothing outstanding about it, and I would recommend that be removed from the list.
Any opposing opinion on that?
Yes, I would not support that. I think it's one of those streetscape houses. Plus, it's really a lovely little compact, well-designed house. I would support keeping it on the list.
Any other comment? And could I see a show of hands of those that would like to remove 119 Los Aguajes? 2. Okay, so that one will keep.
I have another one
Uh-huh.
on Los Aguajes, 230.
230. Okay.
Yeah, this is a weird one.
It is, I'm not sure what is there.
230.
But I don't see it, my comment is simply not good enough to warrant designation of a structure of merit.
It's too bad the original fenestration got replaced.
Yeah, the original drawing is lovely.
Yes.
Yeah. Does anybody care to speak in favor of keeping that on the list?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm probably not going to vote for taking it off the list because to make it like the drawing is really just a question of cosmetics.
Mm-hmm.
Exposing that arch window, putting the lights in the window, putting the lights back in this big picture window, which is now just a reflective square. That would be easy to bring into compliance with the drawing, and I think it's quirky. I think it's a quirky little place, and I like those. I like the fact that this is what working class people could afford in those days, and I think that needs to be. I'm not looking for grandiosity. I'm looking for just the commonality of most of the houses in Santa Barbara. So I would not support removing it.
Okay. May I see a show of hands for those that would like to remove 230 Los Aguajes? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many do we have altogether? 8?
8.
So that it would be a keep because we don't have a majority.
Well, the chair could break the tie because you get a tie.
It stays on because it's tied.
Yeah, and if well, that's true. It's 8 total. That's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so we keep that one. Keep 230 Los Aguajes. Okay, any others, Commissioner Lenvik?
No, that's all I have in my list.
Okay. Commissioner Vena? Okay.
I have no others.
Commissioner Edmonds?
Everything I had has already been addressed, but I did want to just compliment 631 North Milpas. I love the fact that it was Alex Alfonso's office, and he did so many things in the Lower Riviera, and I think that Ryan and Kimmy Schmidt have just done a wonderful job with their business there, and I just have nothing but good things to say about it.
Yeah.
I will entertain a motion to remove 225 Los Aguajes, 231 Los Aguajes, 211 West Mitchell Terrena, 500 North Milpas Street, 506 North Milpas Street, 512 North Milpas Street, and 606 North Milpas Street from the list of potentials.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Uli and a second by Nemec. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
May I weigh in? May I have my 2 cents?
Certainly.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to just thank Nicole and her staff for doing, or I should say Mr. Hernandez and her staff for doing this. This is a service to the city that will last for a long, long time. I'm pleased that I'm particularly pleased that there's some elevations on Milpas Street, which I'm looking for as I'm thumbing through this, that are on the 300 block. Am I correct? Yes. Those are the kinds of houses I'm talking about. 321, 323. Those are the kinds of houses that need to be protected because they are the houses that made Santa Barbara grow. They're the ones that were the people that made Santa Barbara lived. And I think that they deserve a great deal of protection, and I'm pleased that we're voting in that respect.
Thank you. Mr. Vena?
I'd like to speak on behalf of Milpas Street, and that is that it's a shame that it doesn't take the same importance as State Street, because this too is going to be reflecting on the city, and the changes that are being made there are terrible in many cases, and the ones that are ensuing are probably even worse, that are going to change the whole character. And as such, we lose control of something potentially beautiful and that adds to Santa Barbara. Not just because State Street is Santa Barbara, but there are other streets that should have the same level of importance and come under the same criteria that State Street has. I think that we're making a mistake by not recognizing this. Maybe it's too late, but maybe it's not. But I would like to see what we can do about that, if anything.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Landvik?
Yes, 321, 323 North Milpas was removed for
Right.
the owner.
The owner's request.
Owner's request.
It's to be postponed to a later time.
Yeah, it's still on the
My
potentials list.
question is, why wasn't 325 included? It's one more of that group of houses in that block.
This is just the way that, this is the potential list as I inherited it. So when they added things,
I would
typically in
The
1970s,
request that it be added to the
they added
potentials
some
list.
and didn't add the others, and some are some of the most stunning buildings in the city and aren't on the list, and some, you know, it seems a little random. And
I would request then that when 321, 323 North Milpas comes back, that staff have looked at 325 as well, with the possibility of adding that, because it completes that little group of houses in that 300 block.
absolutely.
I would. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, as well, can you include in the motion the postponement of 830 De La Guerra Terrace indefinitely?
It was their request.
30 or 822?
It's 830 De La Guerra Terrace.
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
one that came, just, okay. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'm going to, may I ramble for a little bit longer?
I'm just trying to think we should take before we have a vote.
First of all, I just want to also say that a resounding yes for 435 North Milpas. That's an extraordinary building. And there's a building at the top of Salsupuedes and De La Vista that we've all seen driving around, and it's that with that rather ornate balcony over the garage, and I'm really glad that's on the list. That's one of my
That was the owner's request to be moved ahead.
good.
That was-
So I do have, I just like to ask a couple of questions on, if we see something in our wanderings around neighborhoods, would we talk to you, Ms. Hernandez?
Yes. So if it's not already on the potentials list, I bring it to the designation subcommittee and they make a recommendation
Okay.
to formally add it. But all you have to do is send me an email and we'll
Okay.
take it forward. It's written in our municipal code that any commissioner can put forward anything to be
Okay.
added.
Because there's a 4-unit court on Los Aguajes, 217, 219, 221, and 223, that I'd like to know the history of. I think it's something that should be considered. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Landvik.
there's a court on North Milpas. Was it in here?
Oh, yeah.
And if it isn't, I wonder why it's not in here.
I
Because that court on North Milpas, you drive by it every day and you never see it there, but it's there.
Frango's upholstery and...
Whatever, it's on the west side of
Just down from Haley.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful court, and we cannot ignore that or lose that.
Okay.
True. So,
But I don't, without thinking hard, I can't place the address.
That was on we had a sheet on that to begin with.
They just they asked to be postponed. But that was the 300 block court, the Craftsman one. But there might be another one.
yeah, it's
321, 323?
321,
that one-
323, the court's way back. You have to walk way back in.
That
there.
one is
Upholstery
on the
placed in
potentials
front.
list still.
Okay, and what was the deal with 830?
They
want
just
to
asked to be postponed.
Postponed, okay.
They just,
I mean, there's a number of them that got postponed that came off this
Yes,
original.
Yeah,
list,
but
so-
they weren't on
that's
the
the court right
final
there.
agenda, so we just need to postpone
Yeah, it is
that one.
321,
That didn't
323.
require a motion, you just,
So, Mr. Chair, the only difference with 8:30 is because it's included on today's agenda. That's
Okay.
why it needs to be postponed as part of that motion.
Or a separate motion, maybe to
Yeah,
postpone it.
or you
'cause
could do a
we're not
separate motion.
removing it.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to postpone considering 8:30 Delegara Terrace until a later date.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Who made the motion? Vena, and second by,
Motion, second.
okay. Uli and
That other guy.
that other guy, the Irishman. Okay. Getting flustered here. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will continue 8:30.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
staff, so 321, 323 will come back to us?
yes,
And it's still on the potentials list under your.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay, so now I will entertain a motion to approve structure of merit designation for the remainder of the list.
And are there findings we need to at least state by title, or just the motion?
What you're actually doing is making a motion to do a resolution, aren't you?
Do you have the language in front of you?
I must somewhere, or maybe they have it down there. Is it this white one required? Maybe it's in here. Oh, okay. Okay, so this motion will be to adopt resolutions to designate as structures of merit the multiple historic resources per the attached Exhibit A, excluding, well, no, not excluding the following properties we've already. Okay, so just that first part of it, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Drury, Uli and Drury.
It's our
Sort of the,
show
access
today.
to power down here.
Okay. Did we vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. All right, so we're done with that, so. And
we're
Item
early.
2.
And that's for 250.
Mr. Chair,
so
can you
we're-
announce the 10-day appeal period?
Oh, there is a 10-day, 10 business day appeal period for that to City Council. Okay, so I put all of this stuff over here. And the next item on the agenda is an archaeology report for 302 West Montecito Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The archaeological report was reviewed by Dr. Glassow, and he agreed with the report's recommendations and conclusions.
Is there any rest for the wicked, or are we going to just keep going?
Since I started this one, let's go through this one, and then we can take a break if you like.
Yeah.
Greetings. Microphone's on. Try and stay within 6 inches of it.
Yes, sir.
State your name, please.
Heather McDaniel McDevitt with Dudek.
Okay. Should I read the project description? Need I do that?
So, Mr. Chair, since the project isn't being reviewed today, it's just the archaeological report. It would just be that.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. So we conducted a phase 1 on this property. It started off as a letter report and then ended up needing to be a phase 1. Our recommendations are that since the entire project site is covered with pavement and building, that once that is removed, that we do another survey, another supplemental survey, look at the area. If it's obvious that there's fill soils there, then we should do some quick subsurface testing just to make sure that we have an understanding of the native soils and can rule out whether or not there are cultural material there. If there are, then we go through the typical process.
Right.
And then we also suggest monitoring until it's obvious that there's nothing there.
Okay. I will open this for public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I will close public comment. Were you about to say something? Okay. Take it back to the commission. Are there any questions? Are there any comments?
Good report.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I'll
the-
make a motion to approve the report as submitted.
Second.
Okay, Mahan and Uli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
You want this copy too?
That'd be great. Unless somebody wants to keep it, I'd like to take them and shred them because there's sensitive
yeah.
information in
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Two, okay. And 55, we're okay on time. Okay, item 3 is 1900 Garden Street.
Mr. Chair, did you want to take a short break? or
Oh,
did
yes,
you
short
want
break.
to continue?
The commission will take a 5-minute break. Is that sufficient?
Okay.
Okay, 5-minute break. I am, sorry. Should I start over?
Yes, you should.
Okay. So this is item 3, 1900 Garden Street. Hopkins House, El Nido, is on the city's list of potential historic resources as it is eligible for designation as a landmark. Proposal for improvements to the non-historic carport, including removing the pitched tile roof structure to be replaced with a flat roof and constructing 40 square feet of unconditioned storage area with a concealed EV charging station. Project includes a minor zoning exception request for the location of the trash enclosure and the required interior setback. Staff has some comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you indicated, it is on the list of potential historic resources. So if you do end up taking a motion today, you will need to make the historic resource findings. It's that yellow sheet that the chair has in front of him. Also, just for your background information, the project was reviewed twice on the consent calendar for the carport and for the minor zoning exception. It was continued to the full commission at the applicant's request, and the applicant will go over the design components. Ultimately, you do have a minor zoning exception in front of you, and I'll provide you with a document that does have specific findings related to just the trash bins. The trash enclosure area is a permitted location. It was used for storage space, and we do have permits on file for it, so it's really just the fact that the trash bins are located in that area. So bear in mind that when you're reviewing and making comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, this came before the consent calendar with, I think, 3 possibilities. I mean, there are 3 possibilities to begin with. And it was, at that time, at the consent calendar, Chair Groombine and myself were both there, and we looked at those, and we both thought that the mansard roof was the best. The other 2 were flat roof solutions, and the mansard we thought was more compatible with the existing house. And so, but we continued it for further study, and they came back then with a mansard design that I thought was very appropriate to the existing house, and I approved it that way. So they're coming as opposed to my approval. But it was also, Chair Groombine had seen it earlier and also approved that.
And the mansard is a steeper pitch than the
well,
pitch roof
I'm
that's
just using
being
the word
removed?
mansard, but it's not a French mansard. It's tile roof, which is pitched 4 to 12 or something like that,
Okay.
with the solar panels up behind that.
Okay, a well in the middle,
Yeah.
something like that. Okay, would you like to proceed with your presentation?
Sure.
Yes. So
And
we'll,
please give your names for the record. And you need to turn your microphone on, just push that, yes.
My name is Justin Harmon. I'm the designer.
And my name is Mark Erner, owner.
Thank you.
So here is photographs of the existing structure. Existing house, which you see from this garden in Petrogrosa. This is the existing carport and with the existing clay tile roof. This view here is on Petrogrosa Street. So this is the amount of roof that you see from Petrogrosa Street. This is further up the driveway, so you see more of the house. It's detached from
And
the
that's
main.
it over there.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, and you can
Detached from
use
the main.
one of these pointers.
Detached from the main house, and in the back here, this solid structure is pool equipment and a pool bath back there, which you can see from the backside, the doors that you can access it, and it's a very minor structure.
And is the trash enclosure shown
Trash
here?
enclosure is right over to this side. You can see right here, this is the gate that goes into it, so it's screened by vegetation, and it's got I believe a 6-foot wall with a door.
That's right.
And there's electrical panel and just the trash cans. are
So
back
that's permitted, but it just needs to be recognized now as a trash enclosure instead of what it was permitted as? We can wait until Pilar comes back.
there. I believe that's the case, yes.
Okay.
So here are some neighborhood context photos that you can see. So this is the house adjacent to 1900 Garden Street. This house, I believe, this is the one on the backside, that modern structure that's on Garden Street. That used to be, that lot. I don't know if you know the history of this lot, but that was like.
That's a Ladd and Kelsey house.
Yeah, I believe the son of the 1900 Garden Street built this house and kind of.
Prince Hopkins.
Prince Hopkins,
Exactly.
yeah.
And then these are the houses directly across. So you can kind of see from these photos that the neighborhood has a variety of architectural styles. It's just not Spanish revival. So that's kind of neighborhood context. Here's the site plan. Main structure, existing house. Here's the carport. We are proposing adding some additional storage along this wall. This bumps out. Part of the reason is this is where we can put the inverter for the solar panel, so it's concealed. So we just pull that, made the garage slightly smaller. There's a column right here that we removed. The front, we kept it the same, column the same, tried to keep the structure as a carport.
And these walls are existing?
This is all, back here is all existing. This is pool equipment. There's a bath in here. There's some storage in here. This is exterior storage. And then this right here is where you can see the trash cans are behind that gate.
Okay.
This is a drawing showing the demo, so you can see the roof, the existing roof we're removing and basically keeping it the same size, but introducing the solar panels, skylight to bring some light into the space because it's it's a darker area and trying to introduce some light in it. And then we have this flat area here that would be, we're thinking right now it would be a copper pan to add some detail to it and flat. And then this would be a well to conceal the solar panels from the street view.
Where would the copper be?
On this ring right here.
Oh, okay, so the
flat.
roofing material
The roofing
would be
material would be
copper.
copper, so you kind of maintain that, so as it patinas, it gives it especially from the house right here, there's a sitting room on the second floor, and it'd just be to give it a little bit of detail, so it's not just and then this, we're assuming would be a gravel ballast, so you wouldn't get the typical staining that you'd get on a white membrane roof.
And the pitch on this?
This is 1/4 going back to the main roof. 1/4 inch, so it's pretty much flat.
1/4 inch per foot.
1/4 inch per foot.
The copper is nearly flat.
Yeah, really flat. And then you can see here where this is a storage, and then the inverter would be located. RCP, which you're seeing the rafter tails that are replicating the detail on the main house. And I don't know if you've seen, we'll show an illustration from the existing photos. The detailing on this, when it was done in 79 or 78, everything is on a scale to the rest of the house. So we're trying to bring the details that were in the main house back into this to kind of let the two communicate together better. And you can see.
I'll show this for now, yeah.
So you can see these detail of the rafter tails. We've brought that detail in. This kitchen area with this color, we would paint this the same. The rafter tails would be rough sawn, similar to the main house. And you can see the metal edge detail right there. The existing lights would remain. We would try to replicate these small lights in the house or in the carport to complement these existing lights that are mounted to this post. And then this small amount of addition here would just be the same stucco to match. And then we've got these three columns that are expressed to kind of show this as a pergola structure. You can see this in the elevations. So this is the Petrogrosa Street elevation. This is the back elevation towards the pool of the house. This is the side elevation. There's an existing wall, so you really don't see much of it. And then this is an elevation that faces towards the kitchen of the main house. some sections through the space, so you can see how it's recessed in there to conceal the solar panels, showing the skylights, how we can start bringing light into the space. Here's the detail of that eave condition. This existing like wood band that we're wrapping around, that's a detail that we're pulling from the kitchen structure. That's right adjacent to it, and it would wrap the whole thing. And we feel it gives it, because when we first started studying this roof kind of looked like a hat on this really light structure. So this is a way to kind of give it some mass and give that detailing, give it some kind of purpose next to the existing house. And then this is the existing as is, and then this is what's being proposed. And then this is like right in the driveway, further down the street. Once you know, because this house is on the hill a little bit, you see even less of this structure because but you are seeing how we are, you know, allowing more view through the property.
And if I could step in on that one.
Please do.
One of the ideas behind this was to make the structure more diminutive to the main historical component. And as you know, and I do see your point of view with having a segment of a mansard on there, but my sense of it is, and what we discussed, is that it's going to look a little bit like a Del Taco, because you're going to get a fake roof that's about 4 feet long, then you're dropping into a parapet. And it's clear that when you see the full depth of a carport, that you're not having a full roof. It's a partial roof, it's a phony roof. And so the research that Justin did in the last week, as you can see, do you have that pointer? Is that Justin pulled these images, and we discussed this, is that there's a lot of historical buildings from the teens and the early days of the automobile that celebrated these pergola elements as a carport. And so we felt that in keeping with the 1930s remodel of El Nido, which was its last main sort of hit of change, that we would, as Justin said, take the beam ends and rough cut, put them here. There is paint grade, and then paint it into kind of a olive green, match that across, and then keep it so that this structure takes the least amount of impact possible.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
Yep.
I will open public comment, and we have one speaker, Kellum DeForest.
I commend that the addition or the change will have the least impact possible, maybe less impact than the current structure, which was, I would like to know the date that structure was built, and where in the original Hopkins property was the garage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is he asking a question?
Well, yes, but direct your response to us.
Yeah, from my understanding, when our family got the house in '99, and the Michelsons, who were the previous property owners and the builder of that structure, and they did a lot of concrete work and a lot of things around the property, they said that after the property was split into thirds from the original property in the 1800s, that the garage was then placed to where the pool is now. And if you remember on that diagram, that is where the original garage was. And I think from 1955 up until this, which is 1979, that was the location of a garage. Then it was removed by the Michelsons, and then this was put in its place, and a pool was placed where that garage was.
Okay, thank you. I will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Drury.
So I was a little confused at the outset. Commissioner Mahan, you propose a mansard roof?
Well, a tile roof, yeah.
Tile roof,
Yeah.
but the mansard is simply a...
No, it's not that steep.
4 to
4 to
12.
12, wasn't it?
It was, I did a 5 to 12 to try, like that was what was recommended, a 5 to 12, to make it look, because a 4 to 12, you'd really, that distance, we only have like 4 to 5 feet. You wouldn't really get a whole lot. It wouldn't really change visually. So it was a hip. So it followed it was, and that was the proposed.
So was,
You have those drawings that you showed me?
I should have those drawings available if you'd like to see them.
I think
so
you
would
can-
the,
want to see them.
well, it's what I
Why not?
approved.
would the mansard, would it,
Well, just wait a minute, let me answer Mr. Lindvick's question. If something is pulled up to the full commission, wouldn't you want to see what it was that was not acceptable to the applicant?
Well, I mean, the applicant has, the prerogative of rejecting an idea for a good cause and proposing something else.
I understand.
Yeah.
But maybe you'd like to see what I approved.
Yeah,
Well,
okay, sure.
Yeah, why not?
so my question is simply, is there less pitch with the consent reviewer's proposal than what is existing now? I mean, is the eve, is it lower?
What is the existing pitch here?
Yeah.
It's 4 to 12.
Okay.
So
Maybe lay it on here so you can see it.
Yeah, you have to put, yeah.
So that's how it, and it's a hip, and then you can, as you can see, this is a 5 to 12 because that was what was recommended to me to study, going to a 5 to 12. So you did see more of the roof. That was what was recommended. And I believe in this drawing set as well, I've got all the elevations of the three. Maybe it's not in here. Well, and then here was another option. This was just the flat roof with a parapet with a clay tile.
That was your original proposal?
No, the original proposal is what we're showing you right now.
There were three proposals, the
So,
flat roof. this
when I
and the-
first came in,
and the
I
tile.
came in with this. And then I was recommended to do 3 studies.
Okay.
A pitched roof, a parapet roof, and this flat roof for comparison. And then the pitched roof was what was approved, and we didn't agree with that solution, so that's why we came back to the full board.
Understand.
So if I may continue with my series of
Please
questions. So the overall height of the roof would be less with your current proposal?
By a lot.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That's all I need. Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a question. I'm sorry, you probably explained this and I didn't understand. So the proposal with the new design, that roof is going to be flat versus a slope? Is that correct?
Correct.
And what will be the material on the roof?
Well, there's going to be a band that follows
I
the
got
perimeter.
that.
That's going to be copper. And then there's going to be a shallow well that we're able to put solar in, and that's going to be a gravel ballast roof.
But the only thing the public would be able to see would be the edge of the copper.
I understand, okay. So from the upstairs windows, though, it looks like what rooms are those upstairs?
This is a sitting room.
A sitting room, so you'll look down on the,
Yeah. And currently, we left the structure for years just as it was, and my folks use that space, and they look down and there's solar water heat, and that we've let the roof just kind of go until we kind of came to a better solution. But what we're trying to do is make sure that we get about a 4 to 5 kilowatt system, as well as offset our energy usage on heating the pool. So it's a black bottom pool, but we would like to bring back what was originally on the roof that failed mechanically, which was some solar water heat. So we'd be doing actually solar and solar water heat to just bring down all of those costs and impact.
okay. And then, Bill, your suggestion for the modified mansard, can you show that one more time? I apologize.
No.
Do you have any, I don't know if the correct word is an elevation of what it looks like from the top if you were a drone looking down?
I don't have a roof plan in these drawings of that. Not in this
Okay,
set.
thank you.
It'd be a similar condition where it'd be a ring of a roof, but instead, like in this flat roof, we have a 3-foot band that there's a perimeter. This was this one here we're showing was a 6-foot band, so it'd be a smaller well in that we would have area for the solar, and it would kind of make it a little bit more of a complicated structure to accomplish, just because of how we'd have to frame that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I heard described that on this flat roof is a well. But this flat roof doesn't look like it has a well. So
Minimal, 6 inches or
Can you
something?
describe what that looks like?
What we've got here, the existing, this beam here is rather deep. It's about 18 inches deep, this beam here. So what we've done is we've stacked this roof on top of that beam. So we've got about 8 inches that's stacked on top of it, and then we're hanging the roof structure off of this beam. So that allows us to create that well inside of it, and then it's really shallow. It's about 8 inches, but that's enough that there's no way that you're ever going to see the solar panels from the street. And then from this sitting room, once we get the solar panels in there, it'll start reading as a rather just flat structure.
Chair, question. With the tile solution, though, you could angle the solar panels toward the south up at a higher angle, right? Which would be more efficient than having them flat.
We're going to be using a solar panel system that has optics inside the glass that allows for almost high-level efficiency regardless of its pitch. Otherwise, if we did a pitch that you're talking about, I think it has to be 18% or 18 degrees in this region to kind of hit the magic spot. And that would be quite tall. And also graphically, I think because this whole city is on a 43-degree angle, it would mean that it would, if we were to really optimize it, everything would have to be kind of offset on a sawtooth angle. So we're going to be selecting panels that technology-wise can handle being nearly flat, but just enough to let the beaded water go off.
Any other questions?
One final question, I believe, and this probably, I don't know, is best answered on 451. There's a cross-section of that roof. Could you describe where the setback line is relative to the face of that roof?
Which page number again?
This one here.
451.
451.
There's a section going through there. Where is the setback line?
This setback line, this part of the wall as built is over the setback line. And we can see that on the floor plan. Actually, on the site plan, sorry. So you can see there's a small section of the wall right here that's over the setback line. And I was told this is non-conforming.
Mr. Chair, if you have a question regarding the setback, it was reviewed for zoning, and the structure is a non-conforming, and you're allowed to do repairs, maintenance, and alterations to structures, and this qualified for that, yeah. So not needing a modification.
And so the roof overhang is 2'11" over the setback, which is within the city ordinance.
All right, and then my final one, this is more a comment, my broken record request.
Position us into comments.
Then I shall do that. My broken record request that we should get these drawings beforehand, because trying to study them for 5 minutes and grasp the entire thing is really difficult to do.
You just have to get more experience being on this commission.
You can't review something in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Are we
Mr.
still
Drury.
in questions?
No, we have transitioned.
I just transitioned.
You're in comments now.
Oh, no. Man, I missed the boat. I'm going to pose a question. So could you just explain again what's behind, I'm looking at existing, at the proposed carport. So it's a little bit wider, that white wall on that there. What's behind that?
There is an existing closet there. I'll use the pointer. So right about here is an existing closet that's about a little over 2.5 feet deep. We would be extending that, and that's going to allow us the ability, if we ever want to have solar batteries. So that's going to give us and provide a space for a battery pack if we want to go truly off-grid in the event of, a situation.
Okay, thank you.
Comments? Anybody else?
I'll start with a second comment.
Okay.
I don't mind the flat roof. I think the applicant has supported that, traditionally you would find some kind of flat roof pergola or some kind of porte-cochere or something like that could easily be a carport structure. So I'm okay with the design of the project.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Drury.
Are you through, Commissioner?
I am.
So I would support
Civility.
The
We're into civility here.
I would support the proposed project. What I like about it is that it's much less obvious than the existing, and I think more obvious than a mansard would be. It seems to not take away from the architecture. It seems just a much more diminutive building. And the only thing I would say is that this particular wall behind the bamboo on the proposed elevation, I would like to see some resonance with the house. Whether it's a window with 6 lights or something to. It seems like this is decorative in profile against the house. I'm pointing to the.
Can you point to this up here?
Right here, correct?
Yeah, well, I'm also thinking of that above the beam, the decoration of the beam, the cross there. But
So the left side should be much more like the right side.
Come on. Yeah. I better come on up here. So this against the house is a decorative feature. And I think that it should be bound. This is, by contrast, blank. It would be nice to have something, whether it's a light, an ornamental, of the period, something that would enliven this particular rectangle. That's what I'm suggesting.
Can I comment? Or no?
Let's have all our comments first.
But otherwise,
maybe he'll be the only one with that comment.
I support the applicant's proposal. So there.
I support this more flat roof approach too. I think it's fitting.
I think it's a good solution. I think it's a good solution, and I would support it as submitted, yes.
Do you have any comments in regard to Mr. Drury's suggestions?
No, it's a blank canvas, and it may have landscaping in front of it. He may hang a pot on it in the future. He may do whatever, but I don't think we need to embellish that little bit of wall.
I would agree.
Yeah, okay. We don't need to design this for them. They've solved the problem themselves, and we can live with it.
Commissioner Vena?
I don't have a problem with it.
Commissioner Mahan?
I won't support the project.
Commissioner Edmonds?
I have to say that when I look at this photograph, I think it looks great. My concern is that it's too small in context, and I know the property well. Driven by it over the years. I wish, and so this is why it's a comment, not a question, that we did have a drone-like shot, or there was something that we could see from further back, because it's hard for me to imagine what the flat roof looks like from a distance. It looks great in the photo, and I support it. There's just maybe.
If I might comment on that, commercial buildings often have equipment on them, and our concern is to not see it.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really generally have a concern about what does it look like if you're looking down on a roof.
That's actually not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that the home has a tile roof on it, and I just want, and the current structure that's there has a tile roof that looks a bit heavy to me. So I understand wanting to make it more diminutive. It's just, I'm not sure that if you look at this from a distance, it fits in. It certainly fits in from the photograph.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
You may.
The one thing is that when you're on the sidewalk on Pedregosa, it gently curves up to the level of the garage. So how the under roof is arranged, how attractive that's what you're going to see. And I think I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm expecting it'll be part of your visual presentation when you build the thing. Because it's going to be apparent to people walking by.
Should I wait to answer?
Now you may answer.
Okay. We talked about it, and we're going to be doing like a T&G. What is the term for when it has a beaded T&G underneath? So it feels like some of the period structures you'd see from the turn of the century that have the beading. So instead of plaster or drywall, we're going to bead it with paneling. It'll also allow for a little expansion contraction and do it in a dark color. So the skylight, as you can see from this illustration, will bring light into the space, but it'll have this very dark appearance, and we'll just be basically taking that same olive green all the way across. And then just so that you know for detail, the rafter ends will be matching the sort of deep sort of espresso bean color brown that the existing structure is. And then the other comment I was made about this is I kind of agree with both of you. So what we thought about doing here is like some decorative little antique iron element to sort of break the wall up.
Even a copper gutter down there, just to. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, no, but I get.
Okay.
I see both ways.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think that this is back far enough that you really aren't going to pay attention to it. I've driven by this house probably once or twice a day, for how many years, I don't know, and you don't really pay attention to that little garage structure in back.
Right.
I think it's when you view down from the second floor of the house that the solution they've come up with is probably the most easy to live with. It's regular, it's simple. You're not looking at the back of a parapet with fence in it, so on and so forth. It's almost an architectural piece in itself.
Mm-hmm.
If the skylight, the panels, the copper rim, it will not stand out. It will not grab the eye. It will be something that's going to be you're going to be able to look at without noticing it, probably.
Okay.
So I think the solution they've come up with is really, makes sense.
Hold that thought for a moment. Pilar, did you have comments?
It was just a reminder before you go into your motion that there's 3 sets of findings that you'll need to make. One is the historic resource finding, because this is on the potential historic resources list, so regarding alterations to historic resources. The second one is the minor zoning exception for the location of the trash bins in that existing storage area. And then the third is because this is a single-family house, you do need to make neighborhood preservation ordinance findings. There are 7 findings about consistency and appearance, compatibility with the neighborhood, quality architecture and materials, good neighbor guidelines, and relations to public views.
That's
if
this one
that's applied.
specific project type finding?
Yeah, for single-family residential projects.
Okay, all right. Well, would somebody like to make a motion, first of all?
I'll make a motion if you lead me through it.
Okay, and your motion would be for?
I make a motion for project design and final approval as requested or as submitted. And then we
Okay.
have to do a whole bunch of other stuff.
And then we'll add to that the historic resource findings. The project will not cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of a historical resource. And the minor zoning exceptions, these, just read 1, 2, 3.
Correct, Mr. Chair. It's the 3 that are highlighted there.
Okay. Number 1, the improvements are cited such that they minimize impacts to abutting properties. Number 2, the project generally complies with applicable privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting standards in the single-family design board good neighbor guidelines. And number 3, the improvement will be compatible with the existing development and character of the neighborhood. And finally, neighborhood preservation ordinance findings. Consistency of appearance is consistent with the scenic character of the city. And is that sufficient to just make simple statements like that, or do I need to read more of it?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
ones
just
that are
say why
applicable.
the proposed carport improvements are meeting these.
And compatibility is compatibility with the neighborhood in its size, bulk, and scale. It's appropriate to the site and the neighborhood. There's quality to the architecture and materials and the details. And there's no trees. Health, safety, and welfare is not an issue. Good neighbor guidelines complies. And the public views are minimal. Is that sufficient?
That's my motion.
That's your motion. That was a very well-framed
Well
motion.
done, well. You need a second.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, second by Vena. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, one opposed, Mahan, and the motion carries.
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Thank you. So colors were to match existing.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Chair, if you can announce the 10-day appeal period.
Oh, and so there's a 10-day appeal period to the city council.
Oops, excuse me.
Thank you.
Cool.
Awesome, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Man, it's amazing, we're going to keep you as chair, you're right on schedule. It's amazing.
3:25, pretty close, pretty good.
You're a little late, Mr. Chair, you're a little late.
Well, if it weren't
4
for that
minutes.
darn break you guys took.
Yeah, we stretched that out.
That is
Yeah.
good.
Greetings, team. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you.
Okay, this is item 4, 433 East Cabrillo Boulevard, proposal for a 52 to 60 room. Why is it 52 to 60 room?
We left that wiggle room, but all of the analysis assumes 60.
Okay.
Yep.
So proposal for a maximum 60-room hotel at a project site comprised of 2 parcels, a 3-acre hotel site at 433 East Cabrillo Boulevard, and an adjacent 2.42-acre parking lot site at 1033 South Calle Cesar Chavez. The hotel site is within the El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District and is being reviewed by the HLC. The parking lot site is outside of the EPV and will be reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review. The hotel site is currently permitted for a 150-room hotel with conference and group facilities. Proposed is a revised design for a smaller development at the hotel site consisting of 2- and 3-story structures. The proposed square footage on this lot is approximately 88,000 square feet. Program elements include a casual and fine dining restaurant, wine cellar and lounge, rooftop swimming pool and pool bar, spa, banquet room, water features and gardens. Automobile and pedestrian access to the hotel will be from Calle Cesar Chavez via a motor court and accessible sidewalk at a reception pavilion. Back of house functions, service areas, and at-grade parking are proposed for the parking lot site. What commissioners have not seen this project before? Okay, and have you reviewed the video of the last presentation?
I have not.
Okay, so you can ask questions but not comment or vote.
And then, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to remind the Commission that the last time this project was in front of you, which I believe was December 4th of last year. It did receive project design approval, so this is here for an in-progress review. Again, no appealable decision, and I can provide you with those if you'd like to go through them, Mr. Chair.
The comments from the last review. So it got, did it have an in-progress review, you're saying, in December?
Mr. Chair, received project design approval in December, and one of the comments
here
at
got
that
it
time.
on November 14th.
Yeah, it was November.
And at that time when the project design approval was granted, one of the comments included in the motion was for in-progress review.
Okay, so it
So
came
that's
back
what
in
this-
December for in-progress.
No, it received project design approval on December 4th, as highlighted on
It's
that.
in progress right now.
This
Yeah.
is the in-progress review today.
Right, but the agenda says it received PDA on November 14th.
Right, it was November.
Yeah, apologies, that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the comments last time, we found that the compatibility analysis criteria had been met. I don't need to read all of that. Return in progress with details of fountains, mechanical equipment screening, sample board of materials and colors, and columns. And I guess that's it. So that's what we're looking for today, and anything else that you want to show us. So
Thanks.
your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Suzanne Elledge, Suzanne Elledge, Planning and Permitting Services, representing the Parker family. And I might just take a moment to say that we probably should update that project description, which refers to an approved project of 150-room hotel. That has since now been replaced by this project, which received a substantial conformity determination approval back in June. So anyway, that's a leftover from earlier agendas. And I also just wanted to say, yes, we're going to be coming to the commission several times with pieces and parts of the project. And today our focus is really on the mechanical equipment and the screening of it, which was a concern of Commissioner Lenvick's the last time we were here. Maybe it was actually
Very
the time
concerned
before
about
that. Well, we appreciate that because nobody wants to look at mechanical equipment. So we just wanted to take time today to show you what we've done with the plans regarding that. And I also wanted to introduce Steve Nunn from Kernal Collective, who is working with Bob on the construction drawings and is part of what you're looking at today.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Suzanne.
Here's a pointer for you. Well, you've got one there.
So as mentioned, the intent of today is just to update that mechanical screening. We do have a building element that we'll talk about also that was added, but just to begin with, we could jump over to the site plan. This is just to articulate how the mechanical system is incorporated into the building and how we're screening it. To begin with, we've got a couple clusters of outdoor mechanical units on the ground. These are roughly 6 feet tall, and the only sight to those, vision to those would be from this access lane. All the public vision is screened by a wall that we have on the north side of the property.
And the train tracks are run along there, too.
That's
don't
correct,
they?
just north of the wall, that's correct. And this wall is, we've got it at 8 feet right now, so it's high enough to screen, but then there's still visibility of the hotel. The next one, if there's no questions, I'll just jump through and then we can come back, is on the third level.
Our procedure will be your presentation, then open for public comment, and then the board will ask questions.
Okay.
You all identify yourselves for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had Suzanne,
Certainly.
she left.
Puck
Back there.
Erickson, Arcadia Studio, landscape architect for the project.
Again, I'm Steve Noon with Kernal Collective.
Bob Glazier with my own firm.
All right, if we can jump up to the third level. Excuse me,
That's
A113. We've got a fairly large makeup air unit that we've actually we've put it inside the building. So we'll deal with screening it with the building. We will have openings in that north elevation. I'll show those in just a minute, but that is another piece of equipment that's added and that has now affected building design. If we can jump up to 201. And right now, this is what we have those openings. That mechanical system sets behind here, and these are the openings that we have to allow air in there. And this is the intent. These photographs are to show the intent of what that screening will look like.
We're still working with the size of the openings and the proportions. You might remember from an earlier meeting, we were asked to drop the arches, which we did.
Mm-hmm.
They've been dropped a little bit more for this presentation, but we'd still like to go back and look at this facade and the proportions of the openings of the mechanical versus the arches down below.
So it's on these elevations, just kind of symbolic, not representational
correct.
of what you'll end up with.
It is. It's a work in progress. We wanted to show you we're proposing to have the intake air and how we propose to screen it from the outside.
Right.
And this represents that wall mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The shaded
Those are the
area.
units.
That's right. Yep. Other elements that are incorporated in are the on the roof. We've got some chimneys that we'll have located. These are just right now they're placeholders to articulate the number that we need. We'd like to. I'll show you an elevation of those, but here we're looking for an opportunity to have some diversity in what those look like. Right now we're showing one, but to avoid some redundancy in the design of those, we're down the road we'll look at creating some different different options up there.
As you know, we like photographs, historic photographs. We'll come back at another meeting and
We
show
always
you.
appreciate it.
So
Very
show you
effective.
how many different types of chimneys we'll have. But right now, it's just the quantity of chimneys.
Right.
And this is an example
Yeah.
that we've started with. But again, those will vary. Another piece of mechanical equipment with the screening. Mechanical equipment inside the building, the ventilation will be up here with these vertical projections.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the third item, this is a building element that was added. We added a third stair to the roof over here. To begin with, let me go back to the plan. I have a roof deck plan. Access for the roof, we had a couple stair towers here and an elevator. We thought this would just enhance the experience of that roof deck, so we added this outdoor stair, and I've got a couple examples of that.
So as you know, the hallmarks of the Spanish colonial style are the sculptural stairs. We'd love it if people would use stairs and not the elevators. And so you'll see on this project a number of stairs that go up one floor. And this is the highest stair, of course, going from the second to the third floor. And the inspiration came from a book which you might know, for which David Gebhardt wrote the preface to the book, Early Mexican Houses. And this is a stair that is attached to the side of the building. Again, it goes from exactly, sorry. Second floor hallway to the top. We're working with the proportions of the arches, but we wanted to show you the idea of it. We will come back at a future meeting and present the entire interior courtyard to you, the fountains, the architecture, as well as the landscape. And we'll show you the final stair then. But this is the idea of the new stair that you did not see last time, and it's a new element added to the building.
Okay.
Finally, the because of the additions outside, we added have some changes to the landscaping or updates to the landscaping here as it relates to these outdoor units. And those are the updates we have today.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add about the landscaping?
No, right now we're just massaging the final layout of the units, and our goal is to add a few more Washingtonia Robustas for the north elevation of the building.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation? Okay, I will open this for public comment. Seeing no public here, I will close public comment and return to the commission for questions.
I have no question.
Not right now. It's a lot to absorb
In 5 minutes.
In about 5 minutes, even though we've seen it 3 or 4 times. It's a lot to absorb. But I have no questions right now. I will think about it.
Okay, no rush. We'll
be here.
Yeah.
Really?
No questions, but comments.
Okay. Let's see, is this my stuff here? Yeah. Okay. Commissioner
No
Evans?
questions.
No questions? Okay, comments?
Mr. Chair?
Well, Mr. Drury spoke up first.
Okay.
Well, let's let the senior Irishman go first.
Okay.
Thank you. If we go back to the grills, the ventilation grills. Where's that elevation that shows?
201?
Yeah, 201, yeah. I don't think the grills should be recessed where there's a big shadow like that. Typically, they are flush. I mean, maybe these have shadows, but I think these grills should be flush or almost flush, and that would be much more traditional.
I think what this is showing is that since this doesn't have much substance, it's light on the back wall of that space, and they'll look much different once they're smaller.
Once you have the
openings.
grill, you know, nothing, you will never see through it.
Right.
You will never
Because
see
those
it.
have depth too. Those are like 6 inches deep or something.
One more, I think it was one more page here.
With the stair?
Yes, the stair.
Uh-huh.
I think this is very, that's got a lot of poetry to it. But I believe that this little railing that goes up all the way along is too much of a little thing, and you need to study that. You know, the simplicity of this feels really good.
Would it be taking this character?
Well, that's, yeah, maybe, you know, maybe a little railing at the top, but not all the way, and that is a nice detail.
Yeah.
That's a very
Your
nice
challenge is just getting something that's 42 inches high and still has
Yeah.
the right proportions.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
What we can do is attach the railing on the inside and have it come off the inside and not on the top. It shouldn't be shown on the top like this.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And it doesn't, ideally wouldn't have the vertical pickets. It just have the simple
Just the bar.
horizontal bars, yes.
But you'd have this detail.
Love that detail, yes.
Still a very nice project.
It didn't crack,
I'm sorry?
so it didn't check or crack.
Right, right. We love that, I love that detail for this.
Yeah, it's nice. Other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
Yeah, I struggle to find anything negative to say, so I just don't. I mean, from the moment...
Can't you try harder,
from the
please?
moment well, I'll try hard right now. The moment you came in to this project, it was sort of bound up a little bit, you know, with various architects, and it was kind of a win-win from that point on. And
Thank you.
I find the poetry flowing through the whole site. And
Thank you.
Very much appreciated, very much.
Same here, thank you.
Commissioner Lenvik, do you have any questions
no,
or concerns about ventilation and mechanical?
No. Is this wall right, I'm on A112, outside of guest room 223. Is that a full height?
Yes.
That's a full height wall, it's fully enclosed.
Yes.
So there's no sound coming this way and bouncing down this hallway.
The tracks are right there.
What is that now again?
Quite no guest rooms, look at the backside.
Well, I'm looking at that guest room 223, and I was just asking if that outside wall there that forms the eastern boundary of that corridor, if that was a building wall or a low wall. And he said it's a building wall.
Okay.
All enclosed.
Yeah, so that's all enclosed because a lot of noise is being thrown up at that point right there.
The other wall.
Yes.
And the train.
And the trains, whatever. Yeah.
We have a sound study for the whole project.
You have?
Yes.
Because it's obviously a lot of sound, or there could be a lot of sound. I'm not sure what the equipment is, but there could be a lot of sound, wrapping itself around it. But that wall, how high is that wall? I'm on A100, looking at the.
It's the motor court. It's the motor court curving wall.
Yeah, that curved wall. Is that a tall wall?
Oh, that's a tall wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's at least 6, possibly 8.
Because if the sound gets trapped in there, it's going to bounce around, obviously. But no, it's quite an impressive design. I'll be looking for the detail, looking for the details.
Excellent.
Which can make it or break it.
That is true.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting when we see the details. But what you're showing us now is your approach to the mechanical systems.
That's correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. It was specifically for your comments from before, your concerns about seeing mechanical. So we focused today's meeting on that, plus the stair, but today's meeting is about that. And we'll continue to refine the details as we move forward.
Sure. So like any high-quality hotel, the bathroom ventilation is all collected and taken off someplace else and up, and it's nothing through the walls.
It's what the chimneys are, partly what the chimneys are for.
Yeah.
How soon would you like to return?
With details.
I mean, 2 weeks or an indefinite?
Do you mind seeing small things like this, or would you rather see a bigger piece of the project?
I don't think we mind seeing small bits. It's easier to absorb. And
Okay.
So give them 5 minutes to review it.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so 2-week continuance then or something, or?
That's best.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair,
Okay.
for 2-week continuance.
Second?
limited.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. That was by Drury and Mahan. Hold on
Under
a second.
discussion?
So, Mr. Chair, I believe the applicants, do you want 2 weeks or did you want indefinite?
One indefinite.
Okay, indefinite continuance.
Thanks.
I have another comment. It appears that all of the roofs are the same pitch.
They are.
Have you thought, I mean, obviously you have hip and you have gable, but have you thought of introducing a steeper pitch and breaking the pitch at, let's say, at the deck edge or whatever? Variety. I don't know. Right now it's all the same.
What we could do is break it over arcade or maybe the hallway circulation. For example, this zone right in here. We have not looked at that, but we can look at it on the upper roofs. That is above the third floor. It's tough because this is hitting right up against the 45. But we could do it on the lower roofs, and we'll look at that.
Yeah, it just, I kind of glance through it and I see the same pitch is repeated every place. And, it might be nice to see a 5 and 12 or whatever someplace and then break down to
I was going to ask you whether you were suggesting more 3 and 12 over balconies
Well, I think,
or
if
going to
you're
5
break,
and 12.
I'm just wondering how you make that roof look a little bit more
poetic. I like it.
Poetic.
I like that idea.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. I like it.
And if this was built over 20 years, each architect would have approached it differently. The commonality being the floor levels and the arches and whatever, but other things change.
It was a large enough project that it could have had many
absolutely.
hands on it, and
Absolutely.
you're also
And
kind
that-
of incorporating that.
And that
with
was the idea from the
details.
start, that it was not, looked like it was built over time. It wasn't supposed to all be everything matched, so thank you. I like the comment.
So we have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second, but Mr. Chair, one more comment.
Okay.
Review the way the tile in Santa Barbara goes up crooked, and it's not all regular.
Staggered butts,
It's
you mean, or-
irregular. It's irregular. You want to do that, and
Can I ask a question about that?
Certainly.
So do you allow boosting of tiles?
All over
Hey, you
the
can
place.
use
yes,
boosters,
absolutely.
mortar,
10-15%. Yeah.
staggered butts, drunken
20%.
courses.
Excellent. Okay, good.
Just have to hire a drunk roofer.
Someone told me that was not liked by the HLC, but I'm glad that is liked.
Well, we don't want to see S tiles with
No.
boosters, but
No.
So,
yeah.
And I also have a question for the landscape architect.
Yes.
I don't see, these are relatively broad and comfortable passageways. I don't see that you have pots and such any place yet.
Oh, but they're absolutely coming down.
Yeah,
Just you
because
wait.
I think that little lower stuff, the color or whatever, is certainly nice. I mean, we look at the plan and it's all green.
No, it's, and really what we're trying to do is go back to a more simpler, dramatic palette than sort of greening up every single edge.
Sure.
And the use of pots is, I think, really integral to that approach.
I don't see any bougainvillea on here.
Not
yet.
Not yet.
You talk about red or orange or whatever, some really bright
Yeah.
color
No.
of significance. I mean, you can get real significant clumps of that stuff going. So, as you know, I'm ready to vote, or move it on.
Mr. Chair, really quick as a point of parliamentary order, just so we get it clear, can the maker of the motion amend the motion so that it reflects on the record, so that it reflects the indefinite continuance?
I was just thinking, since we hadn't voted yet, we didn't quite need to do it that way, but okay.
It still needs to be done because it was
The
seconded.
maker of the motion is amending the motion to be an indefinite continuance. Okay. Under discussion.
When you get to the tile, perhaps you can get more of a porous-looking tile so that it picks up some age. And so
Paving
forth.
tiles or roof tiles?
Roof tiles.
Okay.
Completely agree.
So that you don't wait for 50 years for lichen to grow or anything like that.
Yeah.
Completely agree with that, and I use that often, so I understand. Great idea.
Okay, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So,
Well, so you had some abstains.
Abstain.
Yes.
There were no comments that were reduced to writing, and that's fine.
Yeah.
We've exchanged ideas here, and we understand that.
Okay, so the members abstaining were Edmonds, Uli, and Nemec.
Well,
I think just basically we're pleased with the progress. I mean, there weren't any specific things that we need to comment on.
Did you, so we're
They
not
are
reflecting the
minor.
comments from Board Member Vania?
Oh, well,
I think we want to say that the grills need to be flush, and that the arched stairway needs to be, it really needs to be restudied.
yeah, okay, so let's have the elevations those are on. So the grills are on what, ordinal, whatever you call that, elevation? Is that north or?
the grills
Grills.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 202.
are on north elevation.
Okay, the
Sheet
ventilation, the
eight
air
801.
intake grills on the north elevation should be flush with the wall surface, and we are in agreement with the photographic examples presented. And the staircase, a couple more.
It's
On the east elevation of the courtyard, is that correct?
Grand Court, Grand Court East.
East elevation. We support the stair. The railing detail needs to be resolved. And what else about it? Okay.
Yeah, just awful lot. It's a centipede.
Yes, and we encourage roofing material to have a lot of character, including staggered butts and texture and
Slope.
And variety in pitches and patina of age.
And Commissioner Limbeck's comment about the roof.
That's, I just
Variety of-
included that,
variety
yeah.
of pitches.
Okay. All right, well, I think that's enough. Okay, I'll call the question in case I didn't already. All those, I did, okay, all right, okay. So,
3 abstentions, and
yeah,
everybody else was unanimous.
yeah. So with that, I believe this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.